welcome back to another edition of Political Breakfast. Seen and heard on WABE. We're so glad you're here. We are here this week wrapping up the month at Manuel's. This is our second edition, and again, we're glad that you're here. I'm here with our strategist, Brian Robinson, our Republican strategist, and our Democratic strategist, Tharon Johnson. I don't know if you heard, we were talking about inflatables a few minutes ago. Halloween is how many days away? And what kind of inflatables do you have?
This Friday. Yeah, this Friday. So we went to the pumpkin patch. Took our sons, Sean and I. We went way out to Henry County. Shout out to Henry County.
Nice.
And Neat Robinson is a commissioner out there who used to be on the Department of Transportation Board.
Okay.
So Lisa, I live in one of those neighborhoods where certain neighbors take certain holidays very seriously. And in my little working class neighborhood over in Sand Springs, Halloween is turned this year, turned up in a good way. So when you look at our street, we just had two pumpkins outside, and we had two small pumpkins that Tatum and Tyson picked. But the problem is, I learned the hard way. When you carve the pumpkin, it dies. So we were kind of inside. I thought we were getting some air. So last night, I said, you know what? I'm going to go out and put these inflatable monsters up. But now we just had this. It's kind of semi-tsunami overnight, and now the ground is moist and they fell over. So I'm going to let this sort of storm pass. And before I forget, this hurricane, I think it's Melissa? That's coming. So praying for everyone in Jamaica.
Right.
I know Brian likes to go to the Caribbean every now and then, him and Karina. I don't know if y'all go to Jamaica. I think y'all like to do. We like Anguilla.
Category 5.
We like Anguilla?
We love Anguilla.
Like the little Turks and Caicos?
Yeah, little Turks and Caicos. No, I can't afford TC. He can afford it. But no,
Territory.
prayers goes out to everyone that's in harm's way with this hurricane. Hope no casualties happen.
All right, you've got inflatables too?
We have a garage full of them that for whatever reason we did not put them up this year. That is something that for my wife and daughter like to do. I despise making up new work for me to do because then you got to put them back up later. I hate it. But the neighborhood is full of it, and it's fantastic.
The trend this year are those tall skeletons.
That's what I said.
Scary.
You have one of those?
Not the skeletons, but it's like little monsters kind of hanging over.
These tall.
We have some scary stuff that is mechanical, like it pops out at you and this kind of stuff. And it will give you a startle for sure.
Yeah, better be careful because everyone's strapped.
I know.
I mean, your reactions.
Somebody might get shot.
Yep, that's right. Well, there's this one monster that pops 2 doors down from me, and it sounds like he is firing when it pops.
Oh God, This climate, you don't want that.
No, but I'm going to miss Halloween this year for the first time in my daughter's life because it inconveniently fell on Georgia-Florida weekend.
That game.
I'm going to be going to St. Simon's for that, and then down to Jacksonville on Saturday. So I'm going to miss Quinn's.
Is that going to be a good game, though? Is that going to be a good game?
I hope not. I mean, I want us to just stomp their faces in. Yeah, that's what I hope to see. Yeah. That's a good game to me. No tension. You can just enjoy the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, and just let the cocktails be the fun of the day.
The talk is Georgia Tech. Tech.
Shout out to Tech. I got to listen. King. Go Tech. Mayor Dickens listens to this podcast. And Lisa, he was at the State of the Region, ARC breakfast. Huge shout out to them. They do great work. But he said Georgia Tech, go Jackets at least 3 or 4 times at the breakfast. He was on the field this past weekend. And look, I'm worried about that game. But also, I know he's going to have to say something about Tech as well. But I'm not going to talk too long about our Falcons.
Oh, my God. Unwatchable. It was unwatchable.
Every single Miami Dolphins friend that I have, this was the narrative all week long. You guys are going to kick our butts.
Yeah.
I'm not coming to Atlanta. Some of them came, some of them didn't. Even the tickets that I got for some of my
Miami's
friends.
the worst in the league, right?
They went to the game. They're like, hey, man, where are we going to meet you at halftime? And then they all say, look, I'm taking the Atlanta Falcons defense in my fantasy. I'm picking you all to win in whatever little illegal or legal betting league they're in.
How did they crush us?
This is bad.
It's
I've never
really
seen
bad.
this city.
What happened?
I think it's a combination of not being prepared, coaching, offense and defense. They didn't want to prepare offense and defense. And I also think that these guys, it's any given Sunday, truly. Anybody can beat on any given Sunday. Sometimes Thursday, sometimes
How
Monday.
are you not
But you
prepared?
shouldn't be beaten by 30 points on any given Sunday if you're a professional team, right?
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. You're like, you get paid millions of
I was
dollars.
gonna say, how are you not prepared for Miami?
And we lost by 30 to the stinking Panthers, too. I mean,
Yeah.
and then turn around and beat the Bills, which is a fantastic team, a great organization with one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And we dominated them. So we know we had the talent. We know the coaches can pull it off. But there's something not snapping. Look, I know our quarterback was out. Our leading receiver was out. Those are huge. But this is the second best defense in the league, and they were porous on Sunday. I cut it off in the third quarter. No mas.
Well, also, don't forget the 49ers. I mean, actually, I went to that game.
Yeah,
out
I know,
there.
I saw that.
I had a little post. I
Yeah.
took it down. It was pretty graphic. Not in a violent way, but I definitely was just had some choice words. But the thing is, to B. Rob's point, we also dodged a bullet because had Kirk Cousins went out there and had a great game, it would have been a quarterback controversy.
Absolutely.
Right? But the fact that he gave us good old Kirk.
Oh,
Just
plain Kirk. Yeah.
And
There was some miscommunication between him and the receivers. I'm not sure. I'm not smart enough. I know you play football. I didn't.
Yeah.
So I don't always know. But there was something not clicking between
Something
him
not
and the
happening.
receivers.
Yeah, a lot of business decisions were made on that field. On to your point, like by the second quarter, I think a lot of those guys were like, "Look, I just want to make it through. Don't want to get injured." But we got now we got to go to New England, and then we go to Berlin and play the Colts. Now I would not be either one of those guys.
Not gonna waste your time. Well, here at home, in our political world, we have a lot going on, a whole lot going on. We talked about Stacey Abrams last week.
Yeah.
Tharon wasn't here. Tharon, any quick thoughts about that? We talked about her. She made an appearance at the No Kings rally, and there was some talk about maybe she making a political statement. Maybe she might be running for something, possibly Georgia governor again. But Brian said no way, she wouldn't do that a third time. Third time would not be the charm. But who knows?
Listen, she will play a role.
Yeah, I agree.
And will she be a candidate? Will she be a influencer? Quite frankly, will she take up another issue? Because let's not forget, this is the same woman who came within 50,000 plus votes of being a governor, the first black woman ever in history. When she goes and makes these speeches at No Kings, Warnock also spoke too. I don't think there was any coordination there. Let's not dilute the significance of that day. I mean, you had millions of people across the country, and Atlanta showed up. And by the way, nonviolent, little kind of pushes and pulling, maybe a little trash left out, but with no one dying, no one being assassinated, no one bringing out. So look, Lisa, I think that Stacey, we need her, but will she be a candidate? I think there's a lot of pushback against that, but there's also some folks that actually still kind of want to wait and see, and so I think that there will be some, there'll be some new polling coming out here pretty soon on both sides. Yes. It is.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's going to probably be that December month where I think she'll look at it. But do I think she'll run as a candidate? I don't think so. But will I think she'll be involved with her organizational skills, her ability to raise money, her ability to attract the crowd, create momentum? I think all those things will be needed.
Yeah.
I totally agree. She has a role to play. I just don't think it's as a candidate. And look, one thing that we discussed last week, I don't want to be repetitive, but the rest of the Democrats in the state stood aside for her in the past because she became this huge figure in national politics. They're not standing aside this year. It's too late for that. It's too late to get into the field now and clear the field. I know Jason Estevez, one of the things that he waited on before he got in this race was to see what she was going to do because he wasn't going to get into a field against Stacey Abrams. So the fact that he got in said to me, oh, maybe they've had a talk and she's not going to do it, but she wants to have some mystery about what she's going to do. She wants to be in the conversation, which is so important for politicians wanting to stay relevant. So I just don't see her getting in at this juncture. I agree with Tharon that her role is as a framer of issues, a mobilizer, a fundraiser. And look, I will criticize her on numerous levels. All of those things I mentioned, I think she is excellent. I've always had a lot of respect for her talent and her intelligence. I mean, even when she was House Minority Leader in the governor's office with Governor Deal, we knew she was probably IQ-wise the most smart legislator in the General Assembly. She's very bright, but I just don't think that she's connecting with Georgians anymore. And I think a 7-point loss sort of indicates it's time to move on.
Real quick, I think is a little, yeah, she's connected. Let's be clear. This woman still draws an enormous amount of people who support her. She just had a book event here. The rallies. I hear about her being able to encourage people to get involved and actually stay advocates. So look, you can't dilute the significance she has. I haven't spoken to her and seen her in years, but I know that her presence is always felt. And so I think that to say that she doesn't not welcome or people have kind of moved on, that's not necessarily true. I think what we're trying to do as Democrats right now is who is going to be the best person to put together the winning coalition to win next November. And I think Stacey Abrams will have a role in that, but I don't know if it'll be as a candidate. But either way, she's earned the right, Lisa, to take as much time
to
as
have
she
a
needs.
voice.
Oh,
yeah,
she's earned it. She can take as much time. She can travel. Look, let's not success shame her. She's making money, and it's okay with black women making money. I actually like when black women make money. I mean, anybody makes money, right?
Says the guy married to the dermatologist. Yeah, good to know. I'm all about
she
it.
is a very successful author.
Yes.
Yeah, she really is. Josh McCune making news, saying the bickering on the Senate side needs to stop. What will his voice make a difference?
Josh is emerging as a really vocal Republican leader in the state, which he's the chairman of the party. You would think that's natural, but oftentimes the chairman of the state party is sort of a behind-the-scenes character, and he's emerging as somebody really putting his voice out there. We've seen him be very active in the Public Service Commission race, getting out there and saying things, putting out some statements last week when there was the arrest of the Democratic activist at the Public Service Commission. And here we see him weighing in on the Senate race. Now, granted, I think it's wishful thinking. We've got a competitive primary, and there is going to be nobody holstering their arms, right? I mean, it is going to be a bare-knuckled brawl, to mix metaphors there. And there's nothing that we can do to stop it. Look, if Republicans wanted to have a ceasefire, if they wanted to avoid a competitive primary and all of the infighting and the waste of money that comes with it, that should have been decided in November of 2024. We should have come out of the presidential. It was no shock to anyone that John Ossoff was going to be on the ballot in November of 26. We knew it was coming. We should have all gotten into a room and said, okay, who's going to do this? Let's get behind them. We're facing an incumbent who's going to have, I don't know, Tharon, $250 million probably spent on his behalf, either between his campaign and outside groups. So how do you beat an incumbent Democrat with a Republican in the White House? So we know the environment is going to be extra tough. We missed an opportunity to have a consensus candidate. And I know Kemp came in with Derek Dooley hoping that he could be the consensus candidate. He met this profile that Kemp was looking for, somebody who didn't have a voting record in Congress that could be attacked, someone who's an outsider. But it was too late in the process to avoid that fight. There is no consensus candidate. We are going to have a really tough, very expensive primary, and they are going to rip each other's skin off. That is just how it's going to be. And look, on the Democrat side,
that's a visual.
Yeah, I mean, Ossoff is going to avoid that sort of fight because he's the incumbent. But look, Democrats are going to face that in the governor's race. That's a big field, and somebody's got to break out, and you've got to take down the other guy to kind of open up your own lane, right? I would imagine there's going to be a lot of negative advertising against Keisha Lance Bottoms if she emerges as somebody in the 30s in the polling. They got to take her out. They got to say, look, this candidate can't win a general election. You got to go with one of these other guys. So the Democrats are going to face those same pressures. I appreciate what Josh is trying to do, but I think it is all for naught because the fight is going to happen.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Democratic side of the governor's race, Tharon? Is that mounting? Is that going to happen?
Yeah,
it's going to happen soon.
I said months ago, and you always ask me, what do I mean by this? But I said, we're about to have a very uncomfortable conversation in the Democratic Party about who is best, he or she, to emerge as the nominee to build a winning coalition. And if I'm John Ossoff, I want a good running mate, somebody who complements me in areas in which I'm strong, also fills a void in areas that I, necessarily need to basically be able to have a partner. And also, it's got to be someone who, yes, they got to raise the money or have the profile to raise the money, because we're not going to have a money problem. No, whoever emerges as the nominee on both sides will have enough money. But it's just got to be the right person, he or she, that actually has the moderate to center sort of profile, not be labeled as a drag on the ticket, someone who can actually go all across the state and really stand shoulder to shoulder with John. But real quick on McCoon thing, I think what also is going on here, and Brian brings up a good point, a lot of Republicans still feel like David Perdue could have done more or done less of some things. And I think a lot of Republicans feel like Kelly Loeffler could have done more or less of some things. And so what I think McCoon, I haven't talked to him, you talked to him more than me, is that he knows that he can't stop it. This is the Trump era we live in. I mean, we got presidents, president out here just goes and drops the S word, the F bomb. He talks about everybody every day. And so that's the climate.
He literally dropped an S bomb on the in the No Kings cartoon.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw that. And so, how do you expect these candidates, in this case, all men, to behave themselves when their leader is not behaving himself? And so, I think that is the thing. However, we will see a lot of slandering, but the key is going to be which campaigns are able to stay on the offense, but also when hit, defend yourself and get back on the offense. And that takes a confluence of money and skill and an experienced team. And so it will be a lot of back and forth. A lot of things will be said. And I'm not going to let B-Rob escape this. You talk about the Democratic primary gubernatorial race. You talked to Burt. I've talked to Burt. I heard Carr's recent Politically Georgia interview when he said I wasn't born on third base. He didn't think I heard that. And you got Raffensperger out here comparing, like he's going around the state making a little bit of noise. They're gonna tear the skin off of themselves over there too.
No, they will. You're absolutely right.
I mean,
that's what primaries are about, right? And one thing I want for listeners to understand on this is the reason why primaries are actually nastier than general elections is in a general election, you can post up against each other on issues.
Right.
You got
to get there. You got to get there first, And
in a primary, for the most part, everyone's in the same place on the issues. We're all seeing the same polling. We all know what Republican primary voters want to hear and what's going to move the needle with primary voters. So you're going to see them going after each other on personal issues. And so it gets much nastier, much quicker in a primary than in a general. So whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're going to face those challenges. Democrats are going to face that in the governor's race. Like I said, they're all going to be saying the same things as far as policy. You talk about, like, for example, Medicaid expansion. They're all going to agree on that.
Yeah.
And they may have a few other things that they're passionate about that aren't controversial, that the other candidates aren't going to necessarily attack or see an opening to attack. And so you're going to see people attacking Mike Thurman's record as CEO. You're going to see people attacking Keisha Lance Bottom's record as mayor. You're going to see people attacking Jason Estevez's record as either a state senator or as Atlanta School Board chair. So that's just part and parcel of how this process works, and that's why it's so nasty. It's personal, and it has to be personal. That's how you differentiate yourself.
What about the shutdowns? The shutdown, is it going to play into local politics as well?
I don't see that happening. Americans are so used to these sort of scandals now and blow-ups and controversies that they move on fairly quickly, and particularly in a Trump era where he is so able to move the ball down the field when it comes to news cycles, that so much happens under a Trump presidency that you quickly forget what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Much less what happened 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So, I think let's say that this ended this week, which I don't particularly see happening. If it ended this week, we would have kind of gotten through yet another one of these without a whole lot of pain. There's a little bit of pain. Some federal workers are getting delayed paychecks. We're seeing backups at Atlanta, Hartsfield, Jackson, airport now at TSA because the workers aren't getting paid, so they're going to quit showing up. That's pretty normal, and you can't really blame them for that.
Yeah.
But if this drags on and there is pain, then I do think that it could play into local politics simply because outside of Washington, D.C., Atlanta has one of the biggest presence of federal workers in the entire country. I mean, there are a couple of hotbeds. Denver is one, for example. Kansas City is one. But this is a place where there's going to be a disproportionate impact because so many highly skilled, highly educated workers in highly paid jobs live here.
So Brian is right. Most times in a primary on the Republican Democratic side, pretty much everyone is aligned on the issues. Like it's very simple on the right side. You want to stop, as they call it, illegal immigrants from coming into this country. You want to try to cut taxes for the wealthy. You want to make sure you do all these things. Well, on the Democratic side, it's fighting against Trump, but it's also making sure that you're fighting for something. And so if you look at the polling that I've seen recently, if you say you're against Trump on the Democratic side, check. Like folks are going to be like, all right, let me pay attention to this woman or man. But then it gets into like, let's just talk about healthcare. You know, how are you going to go beyond, okay, we need to expand Medicaid? Well, you know, BK, Governor Kemp, has made it pretty clear. There's no expansion while he's still in the office. So what are ways that we can do to try to help our rural hospitals from closing? And I think when it comes around jobs in the economy, supporting small businesses, you'll see some of these gubernatorial candidates go back and forth on that. You have Keisha Lance Bottoms who's saying she wants to eliminate, sales tax or I think teachers paying income tax. Michael Tharon is saying that he'll eliminate the sales tax for workers, essential workers, frontline workers in hospitality, construction, you name it, on overtime and on tips. And so you'll have these proposals that kind of come out. So I think on the Democratic side, traditionally it's always been, hey, we agree on pretty much 90% of the things, but you'll see these candidates have a robust debate about education, about healthcare, about jobs, and also not just being against Trump, but what are we fighting for? Because the Democratic establishment, the voters have made it very clear. We want you guys to fight more. We need more pushback. But you got to have a sort of a power and finesse kind of approach with it, because you don't want to be too powerful where you say something in the primary and then when you get to the general, people like B-Rob get tens of thousands of dollars, to go out here and to remind voters, don't forget, he or she said this then.
That's right.
And so, but you got to get through the primary, so you got to show some grit. And you got to show some fire in the belly, but don't go too far left where you're just not even marketable in the general.
Wow. Absolutely great advice. Really hard though when the base wants to get some red meat, and both sides have bases that want to get some red meat, and so you got to go figure out things that are going to get your base revved up without alienating that general election electorate and the deciders that I always talk about, and. So that's a very tricky balance that must be struck there. And I'll say you are seeing, Tharon mentioned the differences on policy proposals. You're seeing that on the Republican side as well, very substantively. Burt Jones saying, I'm going to eliminate the income tax. You see Chris Carr saying, well, let's just make sure we have the lowest tax burden in the Southeast. And because property taxes are getting to be a big issue, and that's what we're hearing the most about from Georgians is property taxes. And then you got Raffensperger coming out talking about eliminating property taxes for senior citizens. So all of them are approaching taxes in different ways. That is something that's not negative, that's not an attack on anybody, that voters can differentiate and see which of those is best for them or their families. Yeah.
Well, with all that said, you have opinion pieces like this one that came out recently. Can Michael Thurman be Georgia Democrats' fixer? Any thoughts on that, Tharon?
No, listen, Patricia Murphy tweeted out last week this article, and she announced that she will be doing profile pieces on everyone running for governor, I guess at least on the Democratic side. So Michael Thurman was the first person that she followed. But what was very interesting about this piece, and shout out to Pete Murph, I'm going to give her her name. I call you B-Rob, I call her Pete Murph.
P. Murph.
P. Murph. But P. Murph did a good job of getting outside of Metro. So number one, she followed him to Columbus. Number two, he was in a black church. And I want to quote something that he said. He said, leaders are not speaking to their biggest worries: groceries, car insurance, rent, childcare. people are not interested in all the partisanship. They want the answer, but first they want to know that you care. And so that's a quote when he's talking about voters, and he's in a black church. But also, she covered in this article, Lisa, he had a direct message to black men. Lord knows if I had to hear Brian Robinson talk about how black men were going to just run in droves to Trump and the Republican Party. Well, guess what? I would say this as a Democratic strategist. This black man wave did not happen that he was anticipating, but it was a little. It did kind of flow up to the shore, right? We saw some movement. We saw some movement, right?
Yes.
It was.
I wanted names though. I never got names.
They don't come up to me. But I wouldn't say when you're in the Caribbean and you're going out, they always tell you, well, look at all that white. They see all these waves. I didn't see a lot of white in the ocean, but it did happen. And so Michael Thurman knows that part of his strategy is that he's got to build a winning coalition, but I think he also has got to talk to black men. And the other thing that he talked a lot about, Lisa, was really letting people in. He talked about his father, talked about all these things that he learned from his family, really reminded people all the things that he's done. I had folks tell me like, oh, I forgot that he was at DFACS, or I forgot that he went and saved the school district. Oh, that's right, he definitely did serve in the legislature for 3 terms, and he was a labor commissioner. So I thought it was a good piece. You'll see more to come out. But I think that the fact that he was in Columbus, Georgia, which has a tremendous amount of growth happening, and the fact that Patricia really sort of deemed him as this potential fixer, and that's what Democrats need. We need somebody that can go in to fix things, but also fix what's broken in the party first. And then if elected governor, he definitely has the track record and the reputation for being able to work across the aisle to do what's best for people in Georgia.
Is he raising money?
He's raising money.
Good.
Everybody's raising money right now, and the economy is tight, Lisa. I mean, I was talking to the owner of Manuel's before you guys came in, and the fact that we're here, and I'm getting my Diet Coke this time, and I may get some wings to go. It's still a little too early to eat them right now. But the volume is still there as far as restaurants, but the actual purchase level is there. So you got to raise money, but he's raising money. He's making calls. So he's having fundraisers, and I know because people come back and tell me, and people tell me that they're hosting things for him, and he's kind of old school. He don't put everything on social media, but I've been really happy with his social media presence.
I don't think it can be a fixer for the state because Georgians feel like the state's kind of going in the right direction, even if they don't think the country's going in the right direction. So, but I do think that where the fixer label could come in for Mike Thurman, and there are other candidates there who could kind of fill that role as well, is in building that coalition that Tharon keeps talking about that gets you over 50+1. And, obviously Stacey Abrams in the last round wasn't able to do that. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris weren't able to do that in the last round here. So, I think anytime you're in a state where your party starts at 47, 48%, and you got to get, and I would say that the Republican vote started at around 49%. That's kind of that's what Herschel Walker got in that runoff in 2022. And so I think that's kind of where the low watermark is for Republicans. And I think what the Democrats need, that fixer that they need, is somebody who can give them that extra one or 2 points. And I think the primary process, if Democrats are smart and disciplined in how they do this nomination, they'll find somebody who can get those 1 or 2 points. That's what they should be looking at. And frankly, that's what Republicans need to be looking at too. We know Republican can get 49%, and that ain't going to get you in the governor's mansion, right? We got to be thinking very strategically about who can keep the coalition together, who the deciders will stay with, as opposed to abandoning Republicans and going to vote for the Democrats.
The other thing that Patricia mentioned in her article, Lisa, real quick, is that she said that GOP strategists around the state say it's not so much his lengthy resume, but it's his retail political skills they worry about, and it would make him a threat to Republicans in a general election. What B-Rob just talked about is that if we elect the right person that can actually go out and get that 2 to 3%, it's a combination of getting people who've kind of sat on the sidelines back, but more importantly, how does he appeal to some of these disaffected, disillusioned, disenchanted Republicans? Brian wants you to believe that it's just all rosy and everybody just loves what Trump is doing. While his approval rating is right there, but when you get into some of these issues, particularly like how he's handling the cities around ICE, the Republican hardcore voters like the fact they're going in there. But if you talk to these moderate independent voters, I think they don't like how that's going. The economy is not where it should be. Inflation still exists. And last time I checked, we're still in the war in Ukraine. I think Putin just said, I want some long missiles, or Zelensky said, hey, no, I want missiles, some Tomahawk missiles so I can go there. So, while you do have to give the president some credit in Gaza, but a lot of things that he promised the American people hasn't been fulfilled yet.
Tharon hit on something really important here. First, let me clarify. When I say people think Georgia's going in the right direction, I'm talking about Brian Kemp, Republican legislature, not so much Trump. But I am not hitting the alarm when it comes to Trump and the impact on Georgia. He has maintained numbers above 45%. And as long as he does that, I feel pretty good going into November of 2026. Now, if he gets into the low 40s, forget about it. I mean, the Democrats are going to have some big pickups, maybe even the governorship. So that Trump number is hugely important because all politics is national now, and it drives turnout, and it drives your opinion on local candidates as well. So it matters, but I think for the most part, Georgians feel like Georgia is going in the right direction under Republican leadership, and that's a challenge for a Democrat challenger promising change. Tharon hit on something else that's really important, and that is affordability. Any poll right now, whether you're polling Democrats, Republicans, or the general election, they're going to say, my number one issue is affordability / inflation / economy. But I don't want to use that last / economy because people mean jobs, they can mean stock market, they can mean a lot of things. It is affordability. It is what you're seeing when you try to buy a home, when you go to the grocery store, and healthcare. So we're seeing a lot of this Washington talk right now revolve around healthcare. Well, the underlying issue isn't healthcare. The underlying issue is affordability. Right. And that's what Democrats in Congress are talking about, and Republicans have got to find a way to continue talking about affordability too. So Republicans running for governor, running for U.S. Senate, they got to find a way to speak to Georgians where they're at on that issue. I think there's this old view of Republicans as the country club set. Well, that's not the case. The country club set has become Democrats to a large degree. A lot of the Republican base is working class, and they are facing an affordability crisis in this state. We got to build houses, and there's no governors going to be able to lower grocery prices. That's not how this works. But they got to be able to talk about it to Georgians, to let them know that you understand where they are and where they're coming from, and that will determine how you act on local issues, understanding that they are being squeezed.
Didn't we hear that the last election cycle, though?
Well, we
that
did.
The messaging,
we did. Because it was number one last year, too.
Yeah,
but the difference now is that they went after Biden. I mean,
right,
besides B-Rob talking about he was old, and he was right. I mean, up until that debate, I was fighting you tooth and nails about, no, he's fine. But the difference is now Trump is in the White House. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They control the Senate. Mm-hmm. They control the House. And the other thing that I'm starting to hear a lot, Lisa, is we're the number one state to do business, but we can be the number one state to do. And you're going to hear probably a dozen things that we're not number one in. I mean, I can name a few: maternal mortality, affordability, cost of living is what Democrats are saying, right? People can't afford to live in this state. But one thing I want to say is this. We gave Marjorie Taylor Greene a little credit. I gave her a little bit of a shot. She came to the side and she started saying, hey, we need to really extend these tax credits with the Affordable Care Act, these subsidies. But what we found out is there are more registered Republicans in the open market, right, in the marketplace, buying insurance than Democrats. And so what the Republicans are figuring out, to Brian's point, yeah, it's working class folks that they're going after, but Democrats, we got to say, look, hey, we're fighting for you, and we've been fighting for you. Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, it may not have been popular with you because of the actual architect of it and the owner of it, but there are just as many white working class Republicans in this state who are on the verge of losing their health care. We sit here right now with open enrollment, and this state is about to end. And we talk about SNAP benefits being taken away possibly on November 1st. But if these subsidies and these tax credits expire, that's where MTG was really getting ahead of. So Brian is doing a good job of saying, hey, we got to talk about this in a different way. But I think that if you look at most Republicans, they say, hey, we're just the number one state to do business. We're fine. Got a high approval rating of the governor. But there are some things underneath there, right? Once you lift the hood, there's a few points there where I think some Republicans can say, you know what? That person makes a good point. Education, healthcare, really making sure that we secure our ports, making sure that they get everything they need. And you look at what happened at the Hyundai plant. Some of my folks tell me that now it's like, all right, well, you moved all these people back to Korea, but these are jobs that if people in that southeastern coastal area of Georgia can do, give us those jobs. And it's been a booming as far as the housing market, but a lot of folks are being priced out because it's so much volume down there now.
Yeah, that's right. And look, we're seeing the affordability issue play out on the front lines of this Public Service Commission race. That election is next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing the Democrats say, we're going to lower prices by taking it to Georgia Power and holding this corporation accountable and lowering their profit margins. And you got Republicans saying Democrats are going to make cost explode by putting in green mandates that are less reliable and more costly to produce energy. So you see both sides talking about affordability in their own way.
Affordability, affordability, affordability.
That's what I'd be talking about, man.
Yeah.
I tell them, look, I don't play a Republican operative on the radio and TV, and Tharon doesn't play an operative either. We are in real life.
Yeah.
and I'm here to tell you, this is what I am telling my clients who are out there on the campaign trail right now. This is what Georgians in verbatims are talking. Verbatims, that means like if you ask them without giving them a list of things, what is number one to you? They're going to say affordability, or a plurality will.
But I still think that, Lisa, as I know we're getting ready to close here, I do believe that this issue around healthcare. I had a good friend of mine, and I'll talk about it openly. We're at the age now. I made a comment the other day. I said, man, like I was on Georgia game. You were with me. I gave 3 condolences. These are very prominent women who unfortunately have passed away. So I was like, man, did I notice that this many people was passing away when I was younger? Like, maybe not. But now in my mid-40s, a lot of folks that I've developed relationships with are in their 70s and 80s, and they're passing away. We wrote an article that South Georgia is, quote unquote, dying because it's not a lot of folks there. So I believe, Lisa, this issue, I'm saying, this is the article, like it's if you look at Southwest Georgia, the people there are getting older. A lot of the kids are not staying in. So they go to UGA, they go to Tech. Shout out to Tech again, go Jackets. But Georgia State, Emory, HBCUs, right, and don't go back. And so that's what Mayor Dickens is saying, hey, we come through, but be patient with us because we don't have it. But I think that this thing around rural hospitals closing, there's another 2 I'm hearing through my sources that are possibly looking at closing. And Lisa, when you don't have OBGYNs in like, 40 counties here, you have to drive 70 plus miles to go see an oncologist. Optometrists are going down. Dental offices are not able. This is the thing, and I have to say this because my wife listens to this podcast. There are doctors right now, because of this federal shutdown, that are seeing patients but not getting the reimbursements from Medicaid and Medicare. Let me say that again. There are doctors right now who are looking at their bottom line like, okay, how long is this shutdown going to last? Because I don't want to turn Brian away. He's been a good patient, but if I can't get that reimbursement from Medicaid and Medicare, doctors are going to probably start saying, hey, Brian, you might have to go up there to Lisa, or you might have to go, to someone else.
Come back in February.
Come back, see you next year, right? Yeah. Call Trump. Like, he's the reason why, So when you start having doctors, women and men, who have studied, went to to medical school all this time, and these patients are coming in, they've been dependent on this federal assistance, and not being able to get those reimbursements for things like, simple checkups and breast cancer screenings. Brian, you and I are the age now where we got to go have get our prostates checked, but also we got to have a colonoscopy.
What a fun day that is.
But we got to go get our colonoscopy.
Yeah, that's great too.
I mean, these are all things that, guess what? And this is the one thing we share. And one thing I think people like about the podcast, and this is what I've been telling these candidates too, and I think the article with Michael Thurman did this too, you got to open yourself up with. People want to know you're relatable. But we both have spouses where we're on their insurance. Yeah. Because we're small business owners, right? So the amount of insurance that it costs for us, I know you looked at it, I looked at it, I was like, hey, what's your insurance look like? But let's just hypothetically say something happens to our spouse. So think about how many people right now are out there depending on their spouse. And if the spouse says, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Or those federal workers. Because one good thing that we used to do, guess what? What was the one area, profession, or place you can go to with the most job security? It was the government. If you wanted to go have a
good government job.
That's what we say, good government job. Now the good government jobs are gone. It is now the least stable that you can have. And so you have a lot of direct families that are being directly impacted because of the shutdown. And it's going to hit this week. This is the first week. Read it this morning. That when you look in that account, and
mortgages are
it ain't
due,
there.
Rent due.
Those checks are not coming. TSA lines are long. I got to leave early today because I'm usually the kind of guy to get to the airport about 40, 45 minutes beforehand.
Cutting it close.
But now you got to get there probably an hour and a half because TSA is just backed up because we don't have the air traffic control. I mean, listen, think about this.
Yeah.
We don't have enough air traffic controllers. They can't call in sick. This is the one thing that we as Americans depend on.
And not getting paid.
And not getting paid. And then they're overworked. And we've seen what happened when you don't have them communicating, right? Helicopters collide with planes and all this stuff. So we're just in a very tough time right now in this country.
Scary. It's scary. Yeah, it really is. Well, tune in next week. Hopefully things will be better in America. Hopefully. That's all we can do is hope. Hope for the best.
Or at the very least, we can celebrate a Georgia victory over Florida, which makes everything better. It is the sugar that helps the medicine go down.
And shout out
and
to
the Falcons win.
Yeah,
too.
we had Falcons win. Shout out to Clark
win.
Atlanta University. Homecoming was lit. Next year, B.
Was
Rob,
it?
you should come with me.
All
You're not
right.
gonna see many people that look like you,
But you have a good time.
but you'll have a good time, and I'll protect you. But no, we had Spellhouse, but Clark Atlanta University, and all the colleges and universities here in the Atlanta area celebrated their homecomings. I think we may have a couple more left.
Well, you did something for your wife. Let me do the same, right? So I was in Valdosta over the weekend.
I threw the alley hoop.
Yeah, there
I
you
was
go.
reminded.
So my wife, my cisgender heteronormative partner, is the alumni president at Valdosta State University. And so she was the MC for the alumni awards dinner, and we went to a great tailgate at the president's tailgate at the alumni house, and the Blazers won big over North Greenville. So shout out to my wife and to Valdosta State University.
All right. All right.
Marina got a shout out. You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for checking in with us, and we'll see you next week.